Hello, everyone. This is Barry Carter. I am joined by Dara Okani, and we have relaunched our YouTube channel. We finally got the 1,000 subscribers that we wanted to get, although it took about 6 months of inactivity for us to get there. New video today, and it's new ground for me and Dara coaching me. We're going to talk about heads up. I have done zero heads up study in my life in tournaments. I've played a lot of sit and goes, so I've got some experience. But for me, I guess heads up. But if I ever get there in a tournament, it's kind of a novelty. So I'm just pleased to get second and first as a bonus. That's probably not the worst strategy to have for that sort of thing. Dara, what first questions I guess would be how significant should one's study of heads up be, being as happens so rarely?
I think it's super significant because it's for so much money when it happens.
Mm,
I remember when I was writing the PKO book and I was talking to Jack Sinclair and Jack laughed and said the only thing you need to tell people is to win their heads up.
mm,
This was at a time when there was actually a difference in prize money between first and second. So actually you were playing for an astronomical amount in heads
mm,
up. PKOs now most sites pay the same amount, but you're still playing for a huge amount because you're playing for all the remaining bounties. Same is true in regular tournaments. By the time you get heads up, you're going to be playing for 40, 80, 100, 200, whatever number of buy-ins. And compared to everything else in the tournament, that's huge. Like if
mm.
you can win 5% extra of your heads ups, that's going to make a much bigger difference to cashing 5% extra of your tournaments overall. And it's actually much easier to achieve that 5% improvement in your heads up than it is in your cash rate. So it's something
Yeah.
people, even though it doesn't come up very often, it's something, and I think this is something that all the top players know as well, because I remember watching Brian Paris on Twitch. It was years ago now, but he got heads up in two tournaments, and he was very unhappy with how he played in both of them. And he
Mm,
admitted it afterwards on the Twitch stream that he was rusty on heads up, and he said he was going to take the rest of the week off to study heads up
mm.
to
Yeah.
refresh himself. So guys like Brian know that it makes a massive difference to your bottom line. If you win, let's say on average you're supposed to win 50%. If you win even 51%, that's going to make a huge difference to your bottom line. If you can win 55%, that's even bigger. Um, you can't, there's obviously a limit to how much you can improve. Sometimes you're going to be a big dog when your head's up, and you're going to have to get lucky. Even when the chips are level, like the most heads up I played in my career was around 2009 when I migrated out of 6-man sit and goes into heads up sit and goes because they had just started on iPoker and they were very soft and they were super turbos. They were over in about 5 to 10 minutes typically.
Yeah.
And when they started, I had a 60% win rate, um, which obviously was massively profitable. But by the time I quit, I was down to a 53% win rate, and
Mm,
that seemed to be that was just the pool had gotten better. People were playing better in general because it was fast. But that was actually very good training for tournaments. People might say, "Well, okay, well, what's the point when it's over in 5 minutes?" But the stack depths in tournaments when you get heads up typically tend to be fairly shallow. So just knowing how to play different stack depths, and most tournaments end with 40 big blinds in play. So
mm.
the effective stack is 10 to 20 big blinds. And that's where the biggest improvements and differences to your ROI can be made. So yeah, in this section, I want to concentrate on sort of what the GTO solution looks like, but also what the exploits you can make. Often you're going to get heads up against an even more inexperienced player, and they're going to have some very prominent leaks that
Mm.
will be apparent very, very quickly. And you should be looking to exploit those when that happens. The reason why I won 60% at the start in these very fast tournaments was because almost everybody had leaks, which I was
Yeah.
exploiting. The reason it came down to 53% was people didn't have leaks anymore, and we sort of migrated to GTO. I still had an edge, obviously. I was winning 53%, but it wasn't that big an edge.
Oh, sorry, my favorite screensaver is.
Yep. Pesha's beaten me twice. Has to be said, I got it in ahead both times, but
Okay. Sorry, I just about everyone. So, what I'm going to do is, this is a tournament on Unibet called the Battleground. It's a PKO, but for the purposes of heads up, it's just a normal tournament. We're just going to play for the we're essentially just going to play for the bounties.
yeah.
Um, People are quick now. I don't remember any of the hands in this tournament. It was about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I just thought I, I wanted to get for you to have a holistic look at how I played the heads up rather than me breaking down any particular hand. The one thing I will say in this tournament is I had a read on my opponent, which was he was a pretty good solid player, but I felt he was playing too tight for a PKO. So I felt that was going to translate into the heads up match as well. He missed a couple of opportunities to win some mega bounties when it was a very little cost to him. So I kind of felt that he was going to play too tight heads up as well. And I think he probably felt I was playing too loose because I made a couple of wild calls to win some bounties. And he did a little shaking head avatar a couple of times when I made said calls. I think he does that at the start of the video. So I'm just going to start the video now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes people surprise you. Sometimes they're very tight full ring, but they do adjust. Okay, so you're starting super tight. Interesting. He's limping a lot of buttons.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're still three-handed here.
No, we're two-handed.
Yeah.
And we're going there.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought your avatar was the third player.
Yeah. So just so now, I would bet smaller heads up against players who I felt were slightly more balanced. But my strategy going into this was to raise every single hand, raise quite big, put him under pressure because I felt that was the right dynamic. This is the first hand he's raised.
If you just pause it there for a second, I just want to talk about that in general. I'm not convinced that's a brilliant strategy because if you think the guy is too tight, he's going to play pretty badly post flop. If you're raising 3 blinds on the button, it's kind of hard for him to make a mistake being too tight because he's actually supposed to fold quite a bit when you raise that much. And what's going to happen is you're going to end up playing more pots out of position than in position. Because he's going to be defending when he's going to be folding when you raise the 3x on the button a lot, but you're going to have to defend your big blind out of position. So I'm not completely convinced with that strategy. Maybe before we go further, if you could just get GTO Wizard on screen and just look at how 60 big blinds is supposed to play heads up, and then we
FYI doesn't go beyond 60 big blinds in the heads up sims. So.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, look,
because again, in tournaments, you're almost never going to be. So you can see that first of all, there's pretty much no folding on the button, and you're going with the 2x size. The advantage of that is it kind of forces him to defend. So like it forces him to put money in that he's probably going to lose most of the time. Whereas when you go bigger, he can just fold a lot, and it's pretty easy. In terms of the raising range, I mean, heads up is complicated because almost everything mixes. You can see there's very few pure raises, but you should be doing a lot of raising, much more raising than calling. Obviously, just look at the response to the raise. Yeah, when you raise this amount, he should only be folding 12.1%. Now, if he's tight, he might actually be folding more than that anyway. Like, is he going to defend 5-3 off, 4-3 off? So you kind of achieve the same thing with a smaller raise, I think. Get him to overfold. And I also imagine he's just not going to find the light 3 bets with stuff like 8-6 suited, 7-6 suited. You know, he's supposed to have a polar strategy between the really strong hands and then some decent enough suited stuff that at least flops well if you call, and then some blocker type stuff, you know, your king 6 offs, your queen 6 off, that sort of stuff as well. I think a weaker or more inexperienced player is just not going to find those heads up, so they're actually going to be very easy to play against. They're probably just going to raise the top stuff, maybe once in a blue moon a bluff, and I still think they're probably going to overfold. I don't think they're going to necessarily defend their 6-3-0s, their 5-3-0s, their 4-3-0s.
I do remember another reason why I was raising bigger, which was just I felt like this heads up match was going to go on forever if I didn't make the pot.
Well, that's a reason. but again, if you think you're the better player, that's in your interests.
True.
Make it as long as possible and just gradually grind them down.
Yeah. So he's opened.
I mean, you're playing for a significant amount as well. Like you're playing for €340 in a tournament where the first prize that's the first prize basically.
Yeah. Interesting one. This actually. He opened. I defended. Queen 10 of diamonds. I've got he bet and I check raised. Then he called, and then I picked up a pretty decent second turn to fire a bluff
Yeah,
out.
it's this is a decent hand because it's what we call a double backdoor hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can turn a diamond or we can turn a Broadway card as we did and pick up a gutter. Um, and heads up, he's not going to have the ace very often anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the queen and the 10 are probably good as well a lot of the time if we hit. Now you're limping for some reason.
Yeah. I still want to. I don't.
You don't want to fold, but the problem then is that you're raising your stronger hands and he's folding most of the time. So again, even when you're playing in position, you're going to usually have a weaker hand. You didn't defend 10-8 there.
No. He's well. He just changes. This here we go. This is where it gets interesting. So he just open shove there. So no, I mean I think that may have been not defending 10-8 may have been based on how he played when the table was fuller, and just he opened to 3x
Yeah.
instead of 2.5x. There's a few things. Possibly a little mental bias inside my head of well, I've just won a hand, so let's let him win one, so he doesn't feel like.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
But then I also think that when you're winning a lot of hands, that's when your opponent's most likely to make a mistake. So just call there. Like if you flop big, there's a good chance he just goes mental and thinks you're trying to push him around. Another kind of double backdoor hand. Yeah. Once he doesn't bet the flop and we hit gin. Yeah. I go big here. I'd have gone even bigger, but because as I said, like he probably feels like you're pushing him around now.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the problem with the bigger raise too. You lose more when he does that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh no, I would just call that. I don't see the point in. Okay, well he did fold to it, but again, like you have a nice hand. You're getting to a lot of flops with not very nice hands, and you're a lot of situations where you have a nice hand to fold pre. Yeah, normally we'd see bet the ace high board, but I think with king high it's reasonable.
I think I likely felt that I could probably get that to showdown and win.
Yeah,
that tends to be what I do with hands like
that. Yeah, I might have check raised the turn there. It's a better turn card for our range than his. And even though our hand has showdown, I don't think he has a ton of showdown against a player like this. Doesn't be bluffing too much. I mean, I definitely see bet this now because it's just such a bad hand. I don't care if I get check raised.
Right.
And you end up having to fold away equity on the turn anyway because you turn a gut shot. That's a very big size for a paired board. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone for it there against this guy. I just think 7-4, I definitely wouldn't fold. Yeah, a small bet. I think I bet again, probably. Okay.
I mean,
yeah, no, against this type of player, I definitely bet again because he didn't bluff. And like the whole purpose of checking the turn there is or checking the river is to get him to bluff some of the time. And if he's not going to bluff, you might as well go ahead and value.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, we have to call, but against him, we don't love it because he really doesn't bluff.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree with that because some people might think I'm being nitty there, but
No, not against this guy. Yeah, I mean, normally we go smaller on monotone boards. Again, I think you're kind of making a similar mistake to you're making pre-flop. You're raising big with your big hands, and he just fold then and not really make a big mistake.
I don't know what this smaller bet's like. It works. I mean, but
it worked, but again, like you have a nice hand, and he just folded. So It's not the best of results. It's not always nice to win the pot without seeing the flop and you only have pocket
So
threes.
I'm just going to pause that. Would you have just flatted with pocket threes there?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Against this type of player, yeah. Because he's not even going to bluff us off our hand. Like the problem with a hand like threes often is he's going to under realize out of position against players who bluff a lot because we're just going to be looking at three over cards and we're not being able to continue. But this guy just doesn't need to bluff, so I think he'll check behind on the flop if we're still ahead, and then
Yeah.
we can there. And if he bets, we can comfortably fold. He'll almost never be bluffing. So I think that's how you exploit somebody like this. And I think
Right.
just in general, you want to keep the pot smaller anyway because you're going to he's just very easy to play against post flop.
Mm.
And I would expect to win most of the pots post flop. And the more chances you give yourself, the better. He definitely overfolds to the 3x, that's for sure. Yeah, interesting. Again, we probably have the best hand now because he's not bluffing, but I'm not sure there's much point betting it. Okay, no, he's actually made a very nitty check on the flop. Fives. Okay, he's super nitty on flops, basically.
Mm.
And he does these weird big shoves.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption was that I think he felt like he was at the start of the match. I think he felt like he was going to trap me at some point in this tournament, and then obviously when I was probably running quite well against him in most of the pots. I think he was probably getting a bit frustrated.
Fair enough. Yeah, we can be gut shot now, so we can bash. We have a bluff catcher now, but he's not going to bluff.
Yeah,
And I think I value bet the river there.
yeah, yeah.
Because he's not going to bluff. If he raises us, he definitely has a better hand, but I think he'll hang on with it, something like a five, because he probably sees you as somebody who, well, his name is You Ain't Got It, so he's
Mm,
naturally
yeah,
suspicious of you anyway.
yeah,
Again, I value bet river there. Like you have to value bet a lot thinner heads up. Like third pair is pretty good hand heads up,
mm.
and you'll get calls from weaker pairs or maybe even ace high.
Even if you think that, like, is he going to get called with a weaker pair
I
or
think
ace
he
high?
will because I think he's suspicious. I think he won't fold any pair. Uh,
Right. Okay.
like I don't like if he's gonna start folding pairs heads up, then you should go the other way and just be bluffing him every time.
Yeah.
You can't beat a pair. Yes. Yeah, he is very passive. You get a lot of players like this. They're just far too passive heads up. They don't realize.
Yeah. I mean, is he had the biggest stack at the final table, and there were two mega bounties at the final table. This is the thing I remember. And he passed a lot of like eight big blind shoves to win
Yeah,
like
well, you can see you have a much bigger bounty in your head, so you've obviously
yeah.
taken those spots.
But by the same token, I called with 7-2 of clubs or something like that for one of the bounties, and he did the shaky head thing, and I hit a two against some guy and won the biggest bounty of the
Yeah, so
tournament.
he's probably not adjusting. I mean, okay, we have to wait
No,
for.
sorry, I didn't say. Don't worry.
Um, I You can just jump forward 5 minutes. Yeah, okay. I actually think you're both playing too passively, but he's playing far more passively than you are.
Right. It's funny because I'm thinking I'm playing like a maniac. Maybe I ramp it up in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Ooh, I would bet there just for protection.
Right.
Um, Now I go large to make it look like a misdraw.
Yeah.
Again, he just doesn't seem to call off too wide, but that doesn't matter. That just means you should keep pounding on him when you
Yeah.
don't have it as well. Now he's folding buttons. Wow. Call. I think this type of player might throw a stab
Yeah.
when he's three bet. He might feel he has to three bet his ace queen. So
Mm.
I would be tempted to float there to that size.
Mm.
Yeah, there's some players I call queen high against, but not this guy for sure. Call again. His three bet sizings are pretty bad as well. You shouldn't really be folding too much. This is not his board at all.
Yeah.
It's actually significant that he hasn't bet here. I
Mm.
like this bet. Yeah. So okay, now I feel better about your fold at the previous time on the king high board.
Mm.
But it might be just be that he recognized he's not supposed to have everything on that board, so he gave up.
I think it's probably more likely he just had ace king.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
stand up.
Yeah, but a lot of players will still try to see bet. So he's not that type of player. We have a bluff catcher now, but it benefits a lot from protection. So we could go either way on the flop, I think.
Mm.
If he fires again, I think I'm just folding now. Yeah, I like that. Again, we've already identified this guy really doesn't need to bluff anything close to optimal. Now, that is our card. Okay. Okay, just pause it there for a second. There was a timing tell there. He paused on the turn before he
Okay.
before he checked. That means he
Right.
has something because he's trying to think, should he bet it or should he take? Now it turned out that something he had was actually a draw. So you were ahead.
Right.
But
Let's rewatch that just because I want to see
yeah,
a real life timing tell. So I opened.
see, quick check on the flop, slow check on the turn.
Mm.
That's basically, oh, I've hit something and I don't know what to do now.
Either that or his mum's brought him his tea. One of the
Well, that's possible, but in general, he's acting very quick, and it's only
yeah.
when he has decisions that he acts slow.
He does. He plays quite fit or fold. He's like, I haven't hit, so I'm not continuing
Yeah,
on this.
exactly. So the quick
But
check,
that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay,
yeah,
I'm picking some stuff up.
yeah, that's one of the most common timing tells online. The quick bet or check is significant. Quick check generally, as it does in this case, means he's given up. Quick bet against more when you have more aggressive players is weighted towards bluffs.
Mhm.
Okay, I was about to say we have a bad double gutter, but now it's turned into something good. Okay, this feels weird because he's never. Yeah,
Oh, that was the final hand. Good one.
well done. Yeah, I was gonna say.
May as well look at this hand in depth. Actually, this went a lot quicker than I was expecting. So
Yeah, I don't think I go with my hand on the turn. Oh no, you have a straight. Sorry, no,
yeah,
forget what I said. Yeah, of course he has all the sets in two pairs. So yeah, go
yeah,
with
yeah.
your hand.
So are you? I shouldn't at this point. Like I just thought, look, he's obviously got something. I may as
Yeah,
well
he's
just.
obviously got something. We're obviously ahead. There's a lot of river cards where we won't know whether we have the best hand anymore or not. But even if we do, he might not put the rest in on the river.
Exactly. I mean, looking at this now, I assumed at the time I was thinking like, please have ace 10 with the ace of diamonds or something like that, which is probably the bottom of his range for this sort of thing.
I'm
But
not even sure. I'm not even sure this player does that. I think he might just call with that type of hand. I think he pretty much has two pair plus.
right.
And obviously, we're not beating all that range. There's nothing to stop him having a flush or king queen
Mhm.
or what's the other one?
Queen
Queen
eight or something like that. Yeah.
or that. But yeah, luckily he did turn up with a set, which still has a reasonable amount of equity against us. But
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he had the diamond as well, so he's
yeah,
obviously.
he even has the diamond. Yeah, exactly. So
I've given the cursory thumbs up. I think that's why. No, and as a nice little thing, we were at the same table the next day in the same tournament. We both did a little hello wave.
nice. Make friends.
So hopefully this player is also watching, so you can get something out of this too. So I'm going to express back to you what I think I should work on heads up wise. So betting more in general, it seems, would be a thing. Not trying to induce bluffs from type players.
Yeah.
So just bet more in general against type players, I guess is the thing there. Bet smaller, obviously, for the same reasons. What was the thing that I found very interesting? There was something else. I'm going to forget it. No,
Look for
hold on.
timing tells as well.
The timing tell was very, very interesting. And there was one more thing. What was it? No, I'm never going to remember it. So yeah, so that's what I've taken away from this. What would your thoughts on the things I should look into next?
Yeah, I think even though you're right and you should be playing mostly exploitatively against this, I think it's worth putting in some study into how heads up is supposed to play.
Yeah,
Um, because I think that gives you a better idea. Like if you look at just how wide they're supposed to call rivers and you think they're not calling that wide, then you can obviously go for more bluffs. And similarly, if you look at how uh, how wide they should be on any street, like they have to call super tight. Like maybe just we'll finish this off with pull up GTO Wizard and we'll do one example, 60 big blinds deep of heads up and see how
so
it's.
should we do raise and call? Yeah,
Yeah, so do raise and call, and then let's put up a king high board. Say something like king 8 4 rainbow.
yeah.
So very dry board. So the big blind is pretty much going to pure check, I imagine here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so pure check, and then let's just look at the imposition player's strategy. They're supposed to do a certain amount of checking because we have hands here. You know, queens is the obvious one. Like, why would we bet queens? Why would we bet? Um, yeah, well, small pairs as well want to do a lot of checking.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but we still want to go ahead and bet mostly. So
Mm.
in terms of sizing, you do tend to use smaller sizings,
Yep.
particularly on a board like this. So just do a bet 25%, and let's look at what his strategy is supposed to be. So the 25% bet is getting 30% folds, so it's showing pretty much an immediate profit.
Mhm.
Um, he doesn't have a ton of check raising on this board, you know, because his strong hands want you to keep bluffing for the most part. He doesn't
Yep.
need to worry too much about protection either. So there's not too much raising. There's a lot of calling, but just look how wide he has to call. Like
Mm.
he can't fold a pair. He can't even fold pocket twos. They all have to call. He can't fold ace high. He has to call most of his queen highs.
Yeah.
He has to call his jack highs that have sort of double backdoor, that have a backdoor. He has to call lots of backdoor flush draw type hands. If you look at the
Mhm.
jack three suited, probably the only one that fold the jack three suited.
Good.
Yeah, the only one that
Back.
folds is a spade that doesn't have.
Yeah.
So he has to call almost all his backdoors. And again, think about it, like if a guy's not doing that, if a guy's not going to hang on with jack three of clubs, then this bet, which is already profitable at at, at equilibrium, is even more profitable now because now he's probably folding 40%. And this is my preferred way of playing deep stacks heads up against these guys. Just make small raises and small bets, and they just gradually bleed out. Uh,
Mm.
they'll yeah, they'll just drift back down. Okay, then let's say he does call. Okay, pick any turn card you want.
He's pretty much two of diamonds.
Two of diamonds seems reasonable. Okay. So on the two of diamonds, he's obviously not going to be hanging on with too much 2x on the flop. His ace highs and king highs will have a two, and he'll hit some two pair, but this is effectively a blank.
Yeah.
So he's going to check. And now what's our strategy? Now you can see we switch much more to a polar strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our strong hands want to shovel money in now,
Yeah.
and try to get lots of money in by the river. And then we have lots of hands that don't want to bet anymore. They just want to get to showdown. They're
Yeah.
waving the flag. So you can see the predominant size we're using is bet 150%. And this is a spot where lots of players go wrong. What they'll do is
Mm.
small bet. If they have a hand like I don't know, ace eight, they'll go, okay, I'll make another small bet. If they have a hand even like ace four, they'll make a small bet. Ace eight works better as a big bet. Ace four works better as a check in general.
Mm.
Your king X wants to start piling money in now, but you do need to check some kings because you have to protect a very wide checking range. You're checking
Mm.
70% of the time here. So if you bet all of your kings, and then they know you don't have a king, they can play the river much better. So you're checking a lot of your weaker kings, and essentially you're going to bluff catch those on the river if they come out firing. But your stronger kings, you want to shovel money in now. Queens, jacks, tens, those type of hands still don't really want to bet. Like they pretty much just want to check. So
I understand King X wanted to bet big. I understand the bluffs wanted to bet big. They're sort of piggybacking on the King X so they can get more folds. I can understand Queens, Jacks, Tens not wanting to bet big because they're particularly vulnerable to kings. Kings, obviously. They say over over betting. I'm guessing this is targeting the 8x portion of the opponent's range, right? Is that
yeah,
the
exactly.
logic?
Just look at what happens when we do bet 150%. They have to
Yeah.
call almost all their 8x, and that's all behind us. They have to call a lot of their 4x, which is behind us as well. They have to call pocket twos. Oh, well, sorry, not pocket twos instead. Forget that.
Yeah.
But we are beating most of the calls now. So it's thin enough, but this is our size. You know, we don't want to split size here where we're betting big with the kings and betting small with the eights. Then we're two face up. Ace eight still works as a value bet because it beats all the eights, all the fours. And yeah, well, that's pretty much it. So,
So
but that
let's
is the line for sure. Like we're not betting queen yet because now we're falling behind too much of the thing.
let's any particular turn with a card? I'll just
No, you pick one. I don't mind.
pick a queen in there.
Okay, so forget the small amount of leading. That's not really going to be a thing in practice.
Yeah.
So when they check, it's still essentially polar range versus
yeah.
thing. The only thing is the big bet on the turn has strengthened their range. So we're not necessarily going to just pile the river. You'll notice sorry, what am I focusing on here? Yeah. You'll notice, for example, that a lot of the 7x isn't even betting now. That's by virtue of the fact that we have strengthened his range by the big. He's called an overbet on the turn. So King 7 isn't strong enough to bet big for value anymore. But we still want to go our stronger King X. We're not value betting our 8x anymore.
No.
And yeah, and obviously our ace highs just want to bet as well. In terms of our bluffs, like again, we're just picking our weakest showdown hands.
Yeah.
Stuff like 9-3 suited.
Yeah.
We're not using stuff like Jack 10 suited. And then this might be a mistake. I think this is a mistake a lot of people make. They bet these types of hands too much. Just look at what happens when we do bet, say, 87%. And now look at what happens when we check. So the small blind checks. You can see that Jack 10 suited.
Oh, sorry, big blind. No, checks. Oh, that's in hand, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go back to the big blinds range now, you can see that Jack 10 suited is actually going to win some of the time. It's beating stuff like Jack 5 suited, Jack 3 suited, Jack 9 suited. Yeah, so it actually has some showdown. So we just pick our, whereas 9-4 suited has really no showdown. So we pick our weakest hands. And
also, when we bluff with something like Jack 10, surely we're trying to get them to fold the hand that we have as well.
Well, we're trying. Well, they will fold some better stuff. Like again, just to go back to look at what happens when we bet the river 87%. Like, don't get me wrong, we are getting some queen high, a lot of queen highs to fold.
Yeah,
but most of the stuff that folds we're actually ahead of already. So whereas when we do it with 9-4 or not 9-4, sorry, 9-3 suited, pretty much all the stuff that folds we're behind. And again, like we're not betting a very high frequency here on the river. If you go back to the small blind, they're checking, we're checking 42%. So we're only betting just over 50% of the time. And we're not using pot size anymore for the most part. So we don't get to do a ton of bluffing. We have to have more value than bluffs. So we can only bluff about 12% of our range. And it's very easy to overbluff in this spot.
Yeah. Yes. And against a player that's playing too tight,
just bet everything on the river, I
bet
think.
everything. So
Although often the river is the one spot where they're hanging on because they would have folded on an earlier street. Yeah, it's very important to classify when you're playing against inexperienced or weaker players what type of mistakes they're making rather than just say, oh, they're weaker. Like some players will fold too much in earlier streets, but then they get to the river with quite a strong range. So under bluff against those guys. Some guys will hang on too much and get to the river with a weak range. You should over bluff against those guys. Some guys will get to the river with approximately the right range, but they'll either overfold or underfold. Like when you study these spots, look at what's supposed to call and what's supposed to fold, and then ask yourself, this specific opponent, what's their calling range likely to be? Are they going to call me down with ace high? Are they going to call me down with queen high? There are some spots where they should be calling you down with queen high and they won't. So it always comes down to whether they're folding too much or they're calling too much. And if they're folding too much, just bluff everything. And if they're calling too much, bluff nothing.
And if we have a thin value hand, like let's say we have second pair against a player like this, are we reconciling this as we're happy to turn this thin value hand essentially into a bluffing hand because just getting them to fold constantly is more profitable than trying to eke out a little bit of extra value?
I think when we're talking about thin value, I think you should check those types of hands more often against that type of player. You should always ask yourself, like, what are they going to call with? And that should inform your decision on the river, whether you're going to either bluff if you have nothing or value bet if you have something. And remember, like when you're value betting, the criteria is that you have to win half the time they call. A lot of people think you have to always win, and otherwise your hand isn't strong enough to value bet. But that's not the case. Like if you bet 100 on the river, they're calling 100. You only have to win half the time to break even. So you should be, if you're not value betting rivers and losing when they call, you're not value betting enough. Because basically you're missing all these other spots where maybe you have 70% or 60% and you're not value betting.
Cool. Right. Thank you, Dara. For everyone watching, we are planning to make a lot more of these videos. Please like and subscribe, and drop a note in the comments if there's a particular topic you'd like us to cover. Because, like I said, in 2024, we plan to be doing a lot of these. So thank you, Dara, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, Barry, and well done in the heads up.